So Ruth, what have you been up to other than work?
Well, there isn't much time outside of work, but one thing I have enjoyed is actually going for a walk in the evenings with my
Yeah,
husband. So just getting to know the village where we live.
yeah. No, it's been nice, isn't it? We've had some fantastic weather, which has been rather ironic at this time. But Andrew, what have you been doing in your spare time?
Much the same as Ruth. I define spare time, but it's been great with the weather being so nice. We've been taking the dogs for a walk with my wife along the river. We're literally 2 minutes walk from the River Bure, so we can walk all the way down towards Coltershall. Sadly, the pubs are closed, but we've seen the spring and all the wildflowers coming out. It's been a fantastic time of year.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Andy, you're a keen cyclist. Have you been out and about?
Yeah, so one of my team sent me a nice little post the other day. They said, "How are you going to emerge from lockdown? A hunk, a chunk, or a drunk?" I don't know whether I want to claim to be any one of those, but the rhythm of my day includes a bit of cycling and a bit of running, if I can, just to get some headspace, really, as well as some walks in the countryside.
Yeah, I think well-being is a very important thing at this moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Philip, what have you been up to?
I think I'm on first name terms with quite a few birds in our garden now, which is quite extraordinary. And I had no idea how territorial blackbird families were, and it's been quite incredible. Appreciating what's on your doorstep. I think we crave so much to travel and visit the far corners of the earth, and I think it's been a phenomenal period of time to appreciate what's on our doorstep, which I think is, whether that's out on a bike, cycling, going for a walk with our dogs, or just sitting in the garden. It's been amazing.
Yeah, the bird song does seem to be louder at the moment, doesn't it? And it certainly has been for the spring.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, have you been sort of mapping your walks out on Strava or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I do. I am a I don't know, Andy, if you're a Strava user. Yes, I am a Strava user, and I've got a few friends of mine who are also Strava users, and it is quite odd when you see the route that some people take for a walk. So lots of accusations about, why did you do the extra loop on that field? Were you talking to somebody that you couldn't talk to at home, sort of conversation?
Yes. Big Brother is watching you. So for those of you at home who are joining us now, we're just having a general chat. We're just waiting for one or two more people to join us, and the webinar will be off. But we'll continue with our sort of casual chat about what we've been doing, and we'll go in a couple of minutes. So Ruth, have you been mapping your walks, going anywhere unusual?
Not quite. We haven't had a chance to explore the village of Horning since we've moved. So we've literally been up and down every single road and footpath there is. The family and I, we all have Apple Watches now. So we felt it was important to make sure that we're all doing a certain amount of exercise. And instead of sort of being sat at the laptop all day, trying to get up and just walk about once every hour, which has actually been quite difficult. So we've been making sure that we all get out and about with fresh air.
Yeah, I think my dogs are finding it a bit more difficult to walk along the hedgerows now. They think the middle of the road has been their domain for a while. And you've been mapping your walks out anywhere?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm not using Strava. I'm using the Ordnance Survey mapping tool. But yes, map all the walks. And what we've been doing as well is taking photographs. So the dreaded iPhone, take the photographs as well as mapping the walk, and then sharing it with the family as well. So it's been great. But I agree with Philip. It's amazing what you see in your own back garden: robins and blackbirds. And Susan said to me, I didn't believe there were that many birds in our garden.
It's been great to have that time out, isn't it? Okay.
It is.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to open up the webinar today. So hello and welcome to those who are joining us. Welcome to the first MHA Larking Gowen Insights webinar for the tourism, hospitality and leisure sector. Thank you for joining us. For those who do not know me, my name is Chris Scargill. I'm a partner of MHA Larking Gowen and lead the tourism, leisure and hospitality team here. In today's webinar, we'll be looking at the challenges brought around by COVID-19 and the impact of the lockdown, and talk to some businesses about how they plan to move forward. As we're focusing on where we are now, the webinar is called Hope or Fear. First steps for the tourism, leisure and hospitality sector. So today's running order, we are going to run the presentations through to about 11:20, and then we're going to have some time for Q&As. And then we target a finish of around about 11:30. But if the questions are good and we're keeping running, then we'll go on a little bit longer. So some house rules for today. You, the audience, are on mute, but you have the option to ask questions throughout, which I and the panel will be able to see, and we will be raising at the end. We are also looking for you to be interactive. When have you ever been to a tourism event that we've hosted that you haven't had to be interactive? And this event is also being recorded and will be available to watch again and to share from other aspects from our website later on. So just for clarity, we are going to be talking about economic issues here today, but the impact of COVID-19 cannot be underestimated. Discussion will focus on the economic impact to the sector, key as it is to both Norfolk and Suffolk economies and to the wider UK economy too. But we're fully aware of the significant personal impact that has affected so many. That should not be ignored, and our condolences do go out to all those who have lost loved ones throughout this pandemic. So introductions, here we go. Joining me on today's panel are some great leaders within the sector, running and leading businesses from across the industries. I'm sure you will find the information and insights that they share as helpful, and we step steadily out of the shadow of lockdown into what is going to be an interesting and challenging environment. I'd therefore like to introduce you to, in no particular order, to Ruth Knight. Ruth is a director of Norfolk Broad's Direct and Waveney River Centre, both businesses covering a variety of business aspects from camping to lodges, day boats and cruiser hire. And in what little spare time she has, she's also the chair of Broad's Tourism. Welcome, Ruth. Next, I welcome Andrew Barnes. Andrew is CEO of the Bure Valley Railway, an historic attraction based near the coast of North Norfolk. Andrew started off as a volunteer at the Bure Valley before buying into the business, so successfully clearing debt of nearly on £1 million, and it's now owning its fleet of steam engines and making a key Norfolk attraction. Welcome, Andrew. Next, Andy Wood. Andy is the CEO of Adnams PLC, well known for its diversity of products from beer, whiskey and gin production to hotels and pubs, both under direct ownership as well as managed outlets, widening its ever-growing appeal with a number of retail outlets across the region. Andy is also chair of Visit East of England and on the advisory board of Visit England. Welcome, Andy. And finally, and certainly not least, I welcome Phillip Turner, founder and CEO of the acquisitive Chestnut Inns Group, which runs inns and pubs combining typical pub establishments with quality accommodation across the East Anglia region. Phillip was an investment banker before turning his attention to investing in the hospitality sector and now heads up this group. His latest acquisition being just in March of this year. So some interesting facts, I'm sure. Welcome, Phillip, and welcome to all those joining the webinar. So let's setting the scene. Andy, you've got a number of pubs and hotels across the county being closed. Imagine that this has had a big impact on your manufacturing processes. Other than, of course, the widely reported increase in home consumption, has home consumption helped address the loss of the typical pub and hotel outlets for you?
Well, I think the answer to that is, the simple answer to that is no. When we locked down, I think it was about the 23rd of March, 80% of our turnover disappeared overnight. So that was pretty salutary experience. But we have had the benefit, and I think that's part of the benefit of being a more diversified business. We've had the benefit of off-trade sales, and we've had the benefit of our own online sales. At one level, that's really great to see, but the amount of alcohol that's being consumed at home is to behold, really, and our sales are tracking the off-trade market, which are up about 50% in that channel. But that's dealing with 5 or 6 major supermarkets, so that has major implications for margin for the business. So whilst it's a channel of the business that remains open and it's enabled us to keep brewing, it is no compensation for losing the the thousands of great pubs that we serve throughout the east of England, and we look forward to getting back to serving those pubs very soon.
Excellent, thank you. Philip, leading on from that, with the enforced lockdown, is there a risk that the increased habit of perhaps home consumption will only add to the problem for part of the recovery?
I don't believe so. I mean, I'm a great believer in the fact that we are the product of thousands of years of evolution, and we are inherently social people. And the number of conversations that I've had with people who have sort of, whether it was the VE Day celebrations where people found themselves sitting outside their house and maybe talking to neighbours they hadn't previously talked to, which I think has kick-started a round of people or groups of people holding sort of evening drinking events outside of the pub network. I think it's fairly short-lived. I think people go to the pub for a whole variety of reasons. I think, going to drink is just one of many reasons. And I think that, I've taken great comfort, I suppose, over the last 3 months from a quote that Jeff Bezos made, which is, he said, he's forever asked about what's going to change in the future. And he's very rarely asked about what's not going to change in the future. And I'm a great believer in what's not going to change in the future is because you can build a business and a strategy around it. And I think people have been going to pubs for many hundreds of years, and I think they'll continue to go to pubs. And I think in the case of the businesses that certainly that Andy has and we have, is that we will evolve. And I think that's been the great strength of the pub business over hundreds of years. We will evolve, and so consequently, this last 12 weeks will require change in our operating model. But some might argue the operating model needed some change anyway. So I remain very positive.
Yeah, so there's an element really of the absence makes the heart grow fonder, and we've missed that period of going to the pub and social interaction.
Definitely.
Ruth, the day boat hire parts of your business have only just opened, I think on the 13th of June. How has your business been, and how's it operating, and what have you seen differently?
Well, I must say it's really nice to actually be open. There's been a very positive vibe throughout the whole of the business, and the staff have been really keen to get back to work. We haven't operated all of our boats to start with. We've, I suppose, done a soft opening to make sure that we can implement the new procedures. We tried not to overload staff, but obviously we have limited capacity. We're really pleased with how the staff have handled the new procedures. We've also been fully booked with what we've been able to offer, which has been great. The phones have been ringing. The customers are pleased to get out on the water. And we've seen visitors from Norwich, Ipswich, Cambridge, and even parts of Essex. So it's nice that within the day's travel, it's not just people that are sort of within 10 or 15 miles from us visiting.
Excellent, excellent. So real positive news for all those who are yet to open but are praying for good news when that promise comes. Thank you. So we're going to have a quick poll. So again, a bit of interaction for those people who are watching now. We've got a question that we're going to ask you all. So critical to the recovery of the sector is consumer confidence in their safety and at your premises. So what percentage of customers do you believe will stay away from your business premises until a vaccine has been found? So you've got a question that's going to come up there. We're going to ask you to fill in that question and to tick that. And so while that is running in the background and you've got some time to think about that, I will carry on having a discussion. So as I mentioned, critical to the recovery of the sector is consumer confidence and their safety. We need to keep customers safe, and we need to ensure that we remain on track to end the pandemic. So I'm anticipating, I think, that we're going to see a bit more of the theatre of clean, which is coming our way. So I think we're going to see a lot more activity in the cleaning taking place at premises. So let's have a look at the poll results. Are we ready yet? Okay, so we have the significant number, a number of businesses here today are thinking that 16 to 25% of their customers will be staying away from their premises until such time as there is a vaccine. The lowest percentage is under 5% staying away, and about 35%, 18% of our poll said over 35%. So there's some sensitivity there, I think, for the sector. Philip, I think that you have an answer to this because you have undertaken a detailed study of your customers and what their expectations are for your reopening. So what is the answer to the poll from your perspective, please? And what kind of businesses do you think expect?
Well, just to introduce the sort of the survey results we've got, we sent out a guest survey to around about 25,000 people, and they are customers of ours. So there is a bit of a self-selecting bias here. So I'll put that up front. We had a response rate of around about 10%, which I was amazed by. I was very surprised. I thought we would be much lower, and there was no incentivization for people to fill out this. There was no free meal or free drink or something like that. It was just us reaching out to our customer base to ask what their views were to help us shape some of the decisions that we were going to be taking in terms of how we reopened. A second important thing to say here is that, which I think is quite pertinent, and I don't know, for those people on the webinar, I don't know what the sort of the demographic looks like of their customer base, because a lot of people talk about how the younger generation are much more sort of gung-ho about not about going out, whereas the sort of like the older generation are much more protective. And so it's interesting to note that 75% of the respondees in the survey were over 45 years old. So already we're kind of, we know where the bias is. So we've got roughly nearly 2,500 responses, more than 75% are above 45. And the results in terms of how it was split up is that we had approximately 40% of people said that they would visit one of our properties as soon as possible. A further 28% of people said that they would visit within 2 weeks. A further 30% approximately said that they would wait for a month, which means that, so effectively 68% of people would visit within 2 weeks, a further 27% within 4 weeks. So 95% are saying they're going to visit within 4 weeks, which leaves 5% of people who specifically said that they would not be going out to one of our properties until a vaccine had been found, which I think is, from a business, we've all in businesses, we've got two major risks. We've got social distancing and we've got consumer behavior. Is that if consumer behavior means people don't go out, social distancing is irrelevant, because if people aren't going out, you don't have a problem with social distancing. And so we've actually been focusing quite a lot in trying to understand what consumer behavior looks like, feels like. Historically, we spoke last week, and Andy and I, we've both got, I'm much smaller, but we've both got portfolios of hospitality assets in East Anglia. We are rural, we are coastal, which means that we are known to have space. So I think the perception of our client base is that we will have space. We don't have any town centre sites, and so consequently, the density of people within our properties is generally a lot less than you would expect to be in an urban site. And so I think the perception of the people who were answering our survey, you can't discount the fact that they are answering it in the knowledge that our properties are like they are. Had Fuller's or Young's gone out on a guest survey to based upon a portfolio of predominantly town centre sites, I'm sure the results would be slightly skewed. But for the purposes of your discussion today, where we are all East Anglian, Norfolk and Suffolk businesses, and we are known to be rural counties, and the perception is that we are rural and destination focused, I think it makes sense for the discussion today.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that the theatre of clean is something that I think we'll see a lot of. We've got to build up that confidence. We've got to educate our teams, and we'll be touching on that later, about the cleanliness standards, and just re-emphasising all the time that benefit to the consumer of how we are looking after protecting them and looking after protecting our teams at the same time. Andy, what plans do you?
So Chris, just before you leave that, can I just add in another stat there? 90% of 90% of respondees made the point that visible hand sanitizing stations were their #1 priority that they wanted to see.
I think, again, importance of cleanliness and the importance of re-emphasizing that point. Actually, before I go to Andy, have you got any more statistics? Being a numbers man, I'm interested in statistics.
Well, we've got, there's the two most important takeaways, as we were on we're going through the process now, is that there are several well-publicized pub groups that have been all over the news with very well-branded perspex screens and various other bits and pieces, and making a big song and dance about it. We felt, and our customers are telling us, they don't come to the pub to see perspex screens. And it was very interesting is that 85% of people would prefer to see, they want to see that we have taken tables out of restaurant areas. They do not want to see perspex screens. And I think that part of the job that we all have to do across all of our businesses, we've got to demonstrate a huge trust. We want to build that relationship of trust between our customers and ourselves. The government are going to hopefully set out some guidelines and some regulations. And I think I would be very surprised if anybody on this call is not going to go beyond what the government guidelines are. So in other words, government guidelines are the basics. Our job is to ensure that our customers trust us to do what is best for them and for our team. And so consequently, we're going to go over and beyond that. And so when we were taking decisions about should our team members be wearing masks, should they be wearing gloves, we asked. And I think that the answer was unequivocally no. They don't want to see that. They want to see less intrusive social distancing, which is enforced by table spacing. They want to see, as you say, the theatre of clean. They want to see hand sanitizing stations. But most importantly, I think they want to feel that they're being communicated to. And I'm sure that that's what the other businesses represented on the call are doing, exactly that, engaging with guests and making sure that there is that bond of confidence between guest and operator.
Okay, Andy, what plans do you have in place, and how do you think the rules are going to affect your business?
Well, first of all, just to reinforce what Philip's been saying, we've had our beer and wine shops open for some time now. They've got social distancing, and I think the team have done a good job on that. And our sales through those are within a hair's breadth of what they were before, compared on a like-for-like basis. So in the summer of 2019. So that's quite reassuring. Our booking rates and our run rate is as good as it was in the summer of 2019. And I was saying to Philip earlier, we were just having a sort of conversation, that I stopped at one of our pubs on Sunday evening. They were serving beer from the door. There is a green outside, and there were 70 people there buying beer and going and talking in a sort of socially distanced way in their bubbles. So that tells me that people are ready to come out. So I was reassured by that, and I'm further reassured by Philip's survey, which sounds very good. I mean, clearly we're putting in sort of as much as we can, doing low physical touch. So apps that allow people to book, order and pay. But like Philip, we don't think our customers are going to appreciate perspex screens, masks on our staff. This trust and reassurance needs to come through other signals. The theatre of clean that you talk about, which is an interesting phrase, I think, is going to be very much to the fore. We have also signed up to 2 accreditation schemes. We've signed up to the Visit England scheme, which is good to go. And there's going to be a toolkit around that and reassurance for customers there. And we have signed up to the AA scheme COVID Confident as well, just to send those trust and reassurance messages to them. But I'm hugely encouraged by what the future holds. I'd prefer not to be coming out of a lockdown. I'd prefer not to be having to enforce social distancing. But I think that our customers are ready to come back. And as Phillip says, we're in a beautiful location with lots of space around us, so we can do a bit of social distancing.
Excellent. Okay. Andrew, how are you finding things, and what are your plans on opening?
Well, I've heard exactly what Andy and Phillip have said and really echo much of it. I mean, we saw 80% of our revenue go with lockdown. We were fortunate to be able to keep the retail side going along the lines that Andy has. But we started to look very, very carefully about reopening. And we faced the challenge that we're a railway and public transport, the government currently saying, please don't use it, please don't use it. So we had to look very carefully, how could we put in a safe environment that our customers would trust and respect and feel they wanted to come out? Because the phone calls we're getting are certainly telling us that people want to get out, people want to visit attractions, people want to go to pubs, people want to go back to the new normal, even if that's different from the old normal, they want to come out. So we're actually preparing that the trains, we are putting screens in. The problem we face was a challenge, if we don't put the screens in between the compartments, then customers would be compelled to wear face masks. And the view we got was, by putting clear screens between each of the compartments on our coaches, you didn't disrupt the view. We take every other compartment out of view, so we maintain the 2-meter social distancing. It doesn't detract from the views, it doesn't detract from the ride experience, it doesn't detract from the day out, but it offers customers the confidence that they're looking for. Again, with Phillip, the sanitizing stations, yes, to be seen to be cleaning things, not just going through the motions, but yes, regularly clean all the coaches, clean all the handles, clean every trip. And the staff want that environment as well. So I think staff are a key. It's not just the customers, it's our staff who've got to be confident, so it's buying their confidence and trust as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about people coming back, and we've already talked about social bubbles. So maybe it's time for the webinar audience to participate again. A little bit more of a simple question, this one. So the question this time is, should it be the responsibility of businesses to police social bubbles and their makeup? I.e., are we responsible for checking who is joining? So the question we've got here is a simple yes, no, or for those who aren't sure, you can have a don't know. So while you are dealing with that, we will move on. So Ruth, you've got both boats, lodges, which can take larger groups. And this is an area that is not yet unlocked, this group's coming together. We've got sort of minor changes, but not significant changes yet. What are your plans as regards social bubbles and the taking of bookings, etc.?
Well, Chris, I think for the business, you have a responsibility to operate safely and within the guidelines. Very similar to Andrew, our passenger boats are unable to operate at the moment under current social distancing. We are getting a lot of customer enquiries at the moment for holidays. And as we're coming up to what would have been the summer holidays, a lot of our inquiries at the moment are for family groups rather than large groups. The customer is concerned about our preparation and cleaning and how we would prepare for their holiday. So it's positive that we are getting the inquiries for the holidays. I don't feel I can say too much about the social bubble because I don't want to mess up the poll. So, am I allowed to put my comments on that now, or do you want to wait till everyone's answered?
We won't show the answer just yet, but you can tell us now your answer, and then we'll see if the audience agrees with you.
Okay. Personally, I don't believe it's up to the business to police the social bubbles. We have taken at the moment whereby we're not letting out our 11-seater day boats because we don't feel that you would get 11 people in a traditional family unit. For the business, we are focusing on making sure that our procedures are in place. Everything's sanitised. It is taking us longer to do that. I'm very proud of how the team are working. And at the moment, with the parts of the business that are open, our customers are being very patient with us, and they're extremely happy and glad to be out on the water, even if it's just for the day.
Okay, excellent. Let's have a look at the poll results then. So let's see what the audience said.
Oh.
Okay. So there's businesses, though 17% said yes, 74% agree with Ruth and say no, and 9% are yet undecided. So overwhelming support that it should not be businesses' responsibility to do that. And I think that it would be largely uneconomic to have to police that. And I think the problems that businesses would face in trying to do that, I think is an issue. And I'd imagine that sort of ties in, Andy, with the responsibility of the staff in some of your public houses to ensure that people keep, at the moment, 6 feet 6 inches away from each other.
Yeah, I think by definition, the people in our establishments are over 18 years old. So I think there has to be an element of personal responsibility on this. However, we do serve alcohol. So we know the inhibitions come down if people have had sort of more than the odd pint of beer or gin and tonic. So I think staff are going to have to be vigilant. But I'm very clear that it shouldn't be the business's responsibility to enforce social bubbles. That said, the worst thing that could happen for our industry is for a pub or a hotel or a visitor attraction to be closed down because it was somewhere where COVID-19 was spreading. So I think we have a responsibility as well. For the sake of our own businesses, as a risk assessment for our own businesses, to be very, very vigilant around this. So from my perspective, it's not the business's responsibility, it's a personal responsibility. You know, you should not be laying off to other people responsibility for your own health, but we do need to be vigilant from a risk perspective, because the worst thing that we could have is for one of our towns or one of our businesses to be locked down again. That would be damaging reputationally, and it would be damaging economically.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So we touched on staffing as well already, and so the lockdown regulations and government action has seen many areas have been quick moving, but at other times precariously slow. But it's been a stressful time for all concerned, I think, especially staff. Andrew, as lockdown options are easing, how are you communicating with your teams about the plans for fully reopening?
We took the perhaps fortuitous step as when we did lockdown, we took a communication strategy the day we actually shut down. So we kept in touch with staff throughout the lockdown on a regular basis, just keeping them up to speed with what we're doing, the challenges we're facing, commenting to them on reports that appeared in the media, what we were doing, how we were taking the business forward, and similarly answering their questions. So they had a funnel to come back to us to say, well, clarify this or what's this. As the plans to come out of lockdown started, we actually had a voluntary Zoom call with all the staff and actually put an open forum and said, right, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do. This is our view non-negotiable, this is negotiable, but you're a critical part of our business reopening plan. We need to understand your views, your thoughts, your concerns. Because if your staff aren't confident and comfortable in that environment, that will very quickly transmit to your customers. So if you're going into a restaurant or a pub and the bar staff look like frightened rabbits, or the waiter looks like he's frightened, or you're buying a railway ticket and the staff are all trembling, all don't want to be here, I think that very, very quickly transmits. So getting the thoughts, ideas, and concerns at an early stage from your staff, and we learned an awful lot. We learned what their concerns were, we learned what they were looking for, and I think that's reflective of our customer base as well. And we've taken that on board, and I think that has been a key factor in our reopening process.
Excellent, excellent. Philip, you had during your lockdown, you had some interesting things going on. Bit of press coverage on some of the activity you've been doing. How have you been keeping your teams involved?
Well, like Andrew was saying, we've right from the get-go, from the moment that on, I think it was the 16th of March, that Boris came out with the advice about not going to pubs. We've been communicating with our, sort of all the stakeholders in our business, our guests, our team members, shareholders, everyone, our bankers as well. And so I think communication has been just top of the pile of the stuff to do. And I think there's always an assumption that everybody knows what's going on inside your head. And so I spend quite a lot of my time writing emails to our team to make sure they do know what's going on inside my head. We've done a lot of the Zoom calls. We've got some international people within our business. We've been holding Spanish lessons and French lessons, and we've done art competitions, and we're going to hold an exhibition, I think probably at the ship actually, where we're going to auction off some of the works of art that some of our team have created and donating the proceeds to charity. But probably the thing that certainly I've spent most of my time doing in terms of team engagement, we established a community interest company during lockdown called the Giving Tree, and we've raised about £50,000 from donations from local businesses, from some of our guests and people who know our business, which has enabled us to donate. I think we're going to be donating our 20,000th meal this weekend. And we've been going out to about 30 recipients across East Anglia, and that's predominantly Norfolk and Suffolk, but also Cambridgeshire and Essex. And the great thing about that is that we've had probably 60 volunteers. So we've had people in our kitchens, we've had people doing logistics, which is procurement. We've had people delivering delivering these meals to these care homes, hospices, and various other people. And it's created a huge sense of positivity within the business. People have felt engaged with us as a business, both on those people who work for us and those people we're donating meals to. And I think it's created a sense of energy. And I think you said right at the beginning about as we started this webinar. I mean, lots of people have been through some extreme hardship over the last 3 months, whether that's been exposure to family who've been infected by the virus, but also, as I'm sure with all the people on the panel, we will all share our empathy with some of the people who work for us, who've been through some pretty hard times in the last 3 months in terms of loneliness, lack of interaction with people. And so a great part of what we're trying to do is to rescue as much as that as we can. And also understanding that, I think Andrew mentioned as well, is that, I'm chomping at the bit to get back at the coalface and get going. But I can't. I mean, there are some people who work for us who are apprehensive about going back into the workplace, and it might not be them who are apprehensive, it might be their partners. And so consequently, you're dealing with a huge variety of people who've all got individual circumstances and situations. And so by doing anything that we can to increase people's trust and belief in us as an employer and a brand, and somewhere they want to be, and make them feel, I think Andrew made the point, is that a big part of what we're doing is not just for our guests, it's also for our team to feel engaged and safe. Because, as Andrew said, you don't want to walk into a pub and see someone standing behind the bar looking like they don't want to be there.
No, not at all. So, Ruth, I mean, coming back again to that, just touching on what Phillip was then finishing on about the staff and their confidence, boating, it's surrounded by water, funny enough, which can be quite dangerous. And you need to be able to ensure that you brief your consumers and customers properly in that regard. But of course, you've got that social distancing thing. So have you, introduced any changes and initiatives to help on that front?
Yes, we have, Chris. One of the things that Norfolk Broads Direct do very well is they have an excellent team with phenomenal customer care. Once somebody's coming to hire a boat, they do spend a lot of time with the customer, making sure that they are comfortable with the boat, how to operate it. Now, you can't keep doing things how you used to do them. One thing we have done is we've invested the last I suppose 3 to 4 weeks, whereby we have been filming instructional safety videos, which is quite difficult to put together when you haven't got any staff at the office. So I've enrolled my family. We've been cleaning day boats at 7:30 in the morning. We've had various friends in family units helping us to steer the boat. I've seen more engines than I care to admit to. Daily checks. We've had to show on the video what you can do and what you can't do. So expecting one of our skippers who has spent a bit of time making sure the boat's nice, trying to come into a mooring a little bit too fast like he shouldn't, went against the grain. All the information on the video we're hoping to have on a website, which eventually will become an app, because previously our customers would have gone out on their holiday, they would have had a trial run with an engineer, they'd have listened very carefully to everything he said, but in the back of their mind they'd have been wanting to get on their boat and leave the yard. Normally we'd have a skipper's handbook, which is page after page of instructions and further information. It's physically not possible for us to sanitize this book in between each visit. So we're hoping that with a smartphone or possibly a tablet, all the information, the ins and outs of how to operate the boat will be available at a touch of a button for them.
And it'll also be engaging because, again, before people come to on their holiday for their day trip, they can get engaged by actually seeing what it's all about and learning some of those things, so they become second nature. And I think engagement before, during and after any visit, I think is key to getting people to come back and look forward to it. And again, you can't beat word of mouth advertising. So someone turning around saying, I've been learning how to drive a boat today, 2 weeks before my holiday, is going to build up some of that excitement. I think that's a great initiative. Excellent. Okay, so tying in with staff and the future, there is going to be some issues surrounding that sad R word, which is the redundancy issue. So we're going to see some challenges this year, and a lot of the people in our sector are aged between 18 and 25 for their first experiences as they come in, perhaps to fill in and earn some key money for university. So these changes this year is going to be quite different. Andy, as far as you're concerned, do you think that the unsettled employment market this year will impact on the attraction of the sector going forward?
No, I don't actually, because I think this is a wonderful sector for young people to come into. You don't have to be a university graduate. You can get a job. You learn so many life skills, serving customers, dealing with difficult customers, managing yourselves with unsocial hours. There's a whole lot of teamwork in skills that you use. And these are invaluable life skills as well as very pertinent to the job. And I think that's important. It's also one of the last sectors, I think, where you can get social mobility. So you can start as a waitress or a waiter, or you can start in the kitchen, and you can end up in the boardroom. And that's very strong. There aren't many industries and many sectors where that can happen. So if you are a determined young person who's determined to develop their career, the sky's the limit for them in this industry. So I think it will always have an attraction for young people. And I'm a great advocate of young people, well, young and old people coming into our industry and learning lots of new skills and deploying those life skills they have, because this is about connection with other human beings. And that is at the root of what the industry is all about. It's about conviviality, it's about conversation, it's about being together. Now, social distancing will get in the way of that a little bit, but we're very hopeful, and I'm certainly of the opinion that people will come and want to work in this industry. The other thing that we're doing is already starting a conversation with our staff about post-job retention scheme or furloughing. What's the right work rhythm for them? Do they want days off during the week, more days off during the week? Do they want different shift patterns? and just getting them to think about what the world of work may look like beyond job retention scheme as demand is building. So we're having that really positive conversation. When we first went into lockdown, as all the others on the panel have said, I said to my management team, this is going to be a period when we have to over communicate. Yeah. We've got 500 directly employed people on furlough, and then indirectly employed through our tied estate, there's another 500 to 600. So we've got somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 people on furlough at the moment. Those people are desperate to know what's going on. They're desperate to understand what their future holds. And we've over communicated with them. And I think that's been absolutely the right thing to do. We've got an app where we do that. So it's like an internal Facebook, and it has chat rooms on it. So any one of those people can get through to me and ask me a direct question if they want to. And that's, I think, not that many people do it. So my door's always open, but no one walks in. But that maybe says more about me than them. Just giving people that facility to talk to the people who are still working and find out what's going on and remain connected in some way to the business has been really, really beneficial for us. The other thing that we've been doing is like Phillip and like others, is these random acts of kindness. You know, there was a period when we were delivering some of our product to frontline staff when they came off shift. We supported, there was a couple of villages, they made about 5,000 pieces of scrubs for the frontline staff, the scrubbers as we called them, and we delivered product to them. And we also did some stuff with Mercedes Formula One when they completed the 10,000 ventilator challenge. So we've worked at all spectrums, and we communicate that to all staff, because I think that creates a sense of pride in their business, that it isn't all dust sheets and lockdown. There is still some vibrancy going on.
Yeah, no, it's very good, and again, very positive message about people coming into the sector. I mean, Andrew, not necessarily speaking about your teams, I know how much you're working on keeping them all occupied. There are some very unique skill sets within the sector. We've got to make sure we hold on to all of our highly skilled team, haven't we?
Totally. I mean, without dwelling just on us, I mean, we've got some highly skilled, very specialist staff. If we don't retain them, we're not going to be the business we were, and I would question what sort of business we will be going forward. So keeping in touch with those staff, retaining those staff. But I agree with what Andy and Phillip have both been saying previously. I think there is a future for young people in this industry. We've got a pretty young team now. We've got some older staff as well, and they bring a different skill set, sharing that skill, that knowledge, that experience, and people wanting to learn and providing specialist training. And there are now specialist training and apprenticeship schemes for steam engineers and boiler engineers, relevant to us, but there are other sectors where there are going to be, in other industries where they're going to be this as well. And I think for us as the leisure and hospitality sector, young people are critical to our going forward to safeguard those skills, because you can't rely on a 68-year-old steam engineer, because ultimately they're not going to want to work, they're not going to want to come out and fix broken equipment. But if we can train young people, and we are seeing a desire and a wish to learn by young people in this industry and across the sector generally, I think if you can get that enthusiasm and the interest, that comes across to your customers as well. They will actually see an enthusiastic, motivated team. So I think, yes, our key driver now in reopening is to retain those skilled staff. I think key thing is survive first, grow and develop second, but have a key structured plan to keep those staff with you. And yes, get the young people motivated, engaged. I agree with what Andy said. I'm not fussed if they don't come with a degree or highly skilled. If they've got the right approach to the public and the right approach to their job, we can give them training, we can develop them, And I think that is critical for us. We are a leisure and hospitality sector, and a key thing when we qualify our staff in various grades is that would we put them in front of our customers? And if they fail that, that's a key point for us. So I think, yes, endorse all of what Andy and Phillip have said, but yes, nurture the skills and keep them safe to go forward.
Okay, yeah, okay. Enthusiasm, come with enthusiasm. Okay, so we're going to now just approach our question time. So I'll allow people to start thinking about some questions that they would like to ask the panel. Linked into the conversation that we've just been discussing here and the future, of course, we're going through a very difficult period at the moment, and there is some need, I think, for further government support to help the sector keep those critical staff through what is going to be the winter that is coming far too quickly upon the horizon. But if we get through this, the opportunity for the staycation is there. Watching the news the other day, there was some reports that the government is supporting the airline industry, which we have typically seen perhaps takes customers away from us and flies them overseas. So do we think that we should be asking the government to support us rather than the export of people abroad on holiday? So what should they do to help us with the staycation, or are we able to do enough? Ruth, what do you think?
Well, obviously, I think the government should support us. I think anything they could do would be of a help. And your recent survey has given some very good insights as to what is required for the businesses. If we can make it through what we're expecting to be like 3 consecutive winters, then I think we'll be in a strong position to promote the staycation. The lockdown has enabled a lot of families at home to really appreciate where they live and their surroundings. We're very fortunate being in East Anglia. There's a lot of wide open space. There's so much to discover, even for locals. We're having people that are going to be returning to work. They have holiday that they need to take. It might be that they may not be able to go abroad or go into quarantine. So a few days here and there to start with, something closer to home, is going to be popular. They may be worried about their job or the future or money. So I think we're in a good position to start selling holidays now.
Excellent. Okay. Andrew, any thoughts?
I think there is, Ruth said, there is an appetite for the. I think Phillip touched on it. People are not. What we're hearing is there isn't the appetite to get on a plane and go abroad. Yes, there's some people who want to, but we're hearing public. No, I think we want to stay at home. We want to do something at home. We want to be local, and it's not just necessarily the 2-week or the week holiday. The short break market, I think, is an area we need to focus on. The 3-4 day break, and that's amply backed up by both the businesses of Andy and Phillip, benefiting Ruth and our business as well. I think if we can make sure we've got a good collective offering in the district, in the region, I think, yes, there is a definite drive. To the original question, should the government back our sector? Yes, Ruth said, I agree. It should be even-handed. It can't favour one sector or one industry and not another. It's not a level playing field. It's easy to say, I'm not in government, thank goodness. How do you have an even balance? But I think it can't disadvantage us. But I think we've got a fantastic collective product to offer. And I think whilst we will seek government help and support for our sector and our industry, we need to promote ourselves and shout loud and clear what a fantastic part of the country we're in. We're as good, if not better, than Yorkshire, Cornwall, other parts of the UK. Come and enjoy East Anglia. We're one of the driest counties, or driest counties in the country. Enjoy, but let's seek government help, but not rely on it.
Okay. Andy, have you any thoughts? I mean, it's a great place to come. Staycation is good. Market is good. We've been growing consecutively.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a wonderful ecosystem of mainly small and medium-sized businesses that comprise the tourism and hospitality sector in East Anglia, and I think that diversity is a strength. The sector's worth 5.4 billion and employs 120,000 people in just Norfolk and Suffolk alone. It is not a sector that has traditionally enjoyed lots and lots of government support like some of the other industries that we could point to. So I think this point that we're going to have 18 months without a high season is important. We came out of the winter of 2019-2020, crashed straight into lockdown, lost Easter, lost the 2 bank holidays in May, which were all brilliant weather. And then, you know, autumn and winter 2020, 2021, as we're recovering our business, is coming along. So I think there is a strong case with government that we should get a bit of support. I don't think it's an either or though, and I think some of this is in our hands. We've got to get our offer right, because we're not only thinking about this year, we're thinking about next year and the year after. There's an opportunity, if we get our offer right, to encourage people to stay in the UK on a more sustained basis, and I think that's what we should be working for, not just hoping for a good one-off hit this year or next year, but let's try and make that work on a sustained basis. But we also have to remember that airlines bring foreign visitors in as well, and those are valuable to us. So I don't think it's an either or here, Chris.
No, okay, that's brilliant, Andy, and that ties in, I think, with one of the questions that we've got today from Chris Gravely. Hello, Chris. If I can pass that over to you, Philip. The question which ties in, I think, with the conversation and the continuation of how our sector can help the economy as a whole, says, how worried are the panel about a huge recession?
I think it would be churlish to say I'm not worried. I think that, you know, the impact of there will be job losses. There's going to be the impact as far as the debt that the government are going to take on, the legacy of the furlough scheme and everything else will have an impact. But it's and I think we're all a little bit, or I certainly am a little bit concerned that we don't. I think a lot of people are going to come out of lockdown with probably a little bit more money than they went into lockdown. I think there's a number of people who have been furloughed and have been able to find secondary sources of income, and add to that the fact that people have been in their houses for 12 weeks, which means that they haven't, their expenditure levels have gone down, which I think we might have a slightly higher discretionary spend. And sadly, some of those people may not be thinking about next year and the year after. They'll be thinking about the next 3 months. So we've got that. In terms of the recessionary impact, I think it's to echo part of what Andy was saying, is that I agree with what everyone said about I'm a massive East Anglia fan, and we've invested heavily in the region, and we are heavily geared to the success of the region as a tourist destination. And I think that the lockdown will help us in terms of staycations, all the other bits and pieces. But that is no excuse not to ensure that the product that you have isn't the best product out there, which requires the consumer is becoming increasingly discerning about the level of the quality of the product that they are visiting. So we need to maintain investment levels in our properties. Is that everybody is now an expert in cooking and making cocktails, certainly after the last 3 months. So specifically within our business, not so much within Ruth and Andrew's business, but in Andy's business, we cannot let the quality of our food and beverage slip because people want that quality product. And I think it's one of those things whereby, and I think there was a point in time, it was either Grant Shapps or Matt Hancock made reference to the fact that the summer holiday may not happen this year, and there was this revolt in the media that the summer holiday is not something that the government have the right to take away from us. It is almost like a God-given right that we have as a family to go away. And I think that whilst we operate in a discretionary spend market, which we are, is that I think we just need to be careful that the highs aren't higher and the lows aren't lower. And so therefore, I think we've got to be incredibly prudent about how we manage our businesses to ensure that we don't overestimate what the normal, for example, we have Christmas coming up. Yeah, but so we have Christmas, which is a ray of light in what can be a few dark months. And I think we just need to be really careful that we don't overestimate the positive impact of Christmas. And I suspect, flipping to your original question, which is to do with so your question prior to that, where does the government come in? I think a lot of the government support up until now has been at business level and dealing with employees through the furlough scheme, defer of business rates, and all the other bits and pieces. It wouldn't surprise me if the flip now is on the demand side, and maybe there will be a VAT cut in the offing, which actually is going to drive demand rather than the supply side, would be my thought process.
Yeah, okay. Andrew, we've got another question here. That's very useful. Thank you, Philip. I've got another question here about businesses being able to recover the margins given the new normality only adds costs with less capacity. Do you think businesses should cope?
I think earlier what Philip said as well, it's down to us to manage our businesses, and there will be, certainly for our business, Christmas is going to be very different, and it was as a ray of light in a dark 3 months. We might not get that, but I think it's down to us to carefully manage our business. We've had 4 months to plan that we've lost that huge amount of revenue. We've been doing, I'm sure all of us, a lot of work in the background to try and work out how we go forward. I think, yes, we've got to accept what's gone has gone, but we've got to manage and maximize what's out there. And again, I think it comes back to what others were saying. We've got to ensure that we're offering a quality product, a value for money product, not a cheap product, but a value for money product that will appeal to people. And if we get that product offering right and we maximize the take up of our offering to the best of our abilities, I think that's the best we can do. I think there are going to be steps, the VAT to promote demand. There are going to be other challenges we're going to face, but I think if we can work carefully, plan, be prudent, be cautious with our budgeting, look how we structure our businesses, then yes, I think we are well placed, and businesses as an area, we're well placed to come through this. There is a recession coming. Yes, as Philip said, there are going to be job losses. Hopefully we'll be able to manage our individual businesses to avoid those, but let's do the best we can, plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Is the outcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Diane Evans has asked a question, Andy, and just before we go to there, I appreciate that we are now over our 1 hour allocated slot for today. The panel have agreed to be here for a few more minutes to try and answer as many questions. For those of you who can't continue to listen to this live webinar, it is going to be available on our website, so you'll be able to join in and catch up with anything you've missed later. But Andy, the question that has come through from Diane Evans ties in with the enthusiasm for needing young people to join us. And wearing your chair of Visit East of England, there has been some government initiatives regarding getting better quality into the hospitality and tourism sector. So she asked, very pleased to hear that there will be opportunities for young people. How will we communicate with young people about to complete school this year? I mean, that's a very specific question about this year, but how are we selling our sector to schools and school children?
Well, I think our engagement is not principally with schools, and we do need to be very careful. We've got an alcohol brand, and we need to be careful about engaging with people under the age of 18, and we're very cognizant of that matter. But we do have really good relationships with many of the further education colleges around the 2 counties, actually, whether it's City College in Norwich, whether it's Suffolk New College in Ipswich, whether it's the sort of Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft College. We've got good relationships with them, and we're talking to them all of the time. Also, young people are great networkers, and they talk to one another and tell one another if they found a great employer, come and work with me at this great employer, and that's fantastic. There's a huge responsibility on us, though, to get the right training in place for them and make sure that their careers develop. It's quite easy to leave people, you know, they're good at their job, they're good at bussing tables, they're good behind a bar, leave them there doing that. But if they've got more potential, it rests with us to develop that potential and help them become the best that they can be. But our engagement is not really with schools. We've got 1 or 2 staff who are school governors and that type of thing, but we have to be very careful about taking an alcohol brand into schools. But we do engage with the further education colleges on the patch.
Okay, excellent. And we've got another question here for you, Ruth, this time. I think I'd ask from Guy Portas. Do you think this recession or the problems that we've seen will see the end of the race to the lowest price and the end for some of the 2-for-1 offers and to see margins improving? Now, I'm asking that. That's pretty much driven from the convenient food, fast food type of market. But as a broads business, you've not really gone into the discounting, and you encourage sort of loyalty from that. So how do you deal with the anti-discounting?
It obviously is a challenge. I mean, businesses now are going to be faced with reduced capacity and reduced revenue. They will also have increased costs in implementing new guidelines. I think it's really important that what we're able to offer is good value and good quality. There is a strong customer loyalty within the brand, I suppose, of all boating holidays. It's not something you just go out and buy. Customer expectation is they do expect a certain standard, and there is pressure on the businesses to make sure that they are reaching those standards and exceeding the standards. The discounting doesn't really help anyone, and I don't believe that a business now with their increased costs would be happy just to drop the price to rock bottom. There have been businesses in the past where they've done offers in papers to try and get people on board. That hasn't happened for a long time now. We need to make sure that what we're offering the customer is good enough. They are desperate to come and have a holiday. They want to explore the Broads. The boats that we offer are well maintained. There's regular reinvestment. And realistically, if we all stand together on this and all agree not to discount, then I think we'll be in a good position for the future.
I think that's important. I think that what we can possibly try and get out of this is to stop that discounting feature. If everyone is prepared, you know, hopefully because of capacity, and I appreciate the sensitivity of this bit, but if capacity is reduced, then if we can get customer confidence, then we'll see that capacity reached, and maybe that will stop people waiting for the last minute bargain, and maybe that will again be good for the sector as a whole long term.
Chris, I think we do need to be very careful about talking about pricing and suggesting that businesses work together to keep prices at a certain level. That's illegal if we get into that conversation.
No, I wasn't suggesting pricing. I was just suggesting that we don't try to drive to the bottom.
No. I completely agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, no, it's a mindset that customers wait for the sales. It would be to avoid that. Okay. What I've got here is one more question, I believe. Many of our customers are utilising real-time feedback survey systems. Are you planning to introduce some of those into your businesses, Andy?
Well, I mean, yes is the answer to that. We don't necessarily have real time at the moment, but we have TripAdvisor, and that is good. He smiles. That's a good feedback system. Our staff are good at capturing feedback and feeding that back with it into the whole system. So there's no reason why that shouldn't continue. But we do capture feedback as people are checking out and throughout their stay. So are we going to put in specific technology to do that? No, we're not. Are we expecting our staff to engage with our customers? Yes, we are. And if they have problems, we want to empower our staff to solve them for the customer there and then, not wait until the customer complains. Let's work with the customer to solve their problem. A complaint's a gift, after all. The customer has given you a chance to put it right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, and Philip, are you retraining any of your staff on any of the issues surrounding the to work program?
Oh, I think training is the most important thing as far as the team are concerned. I mean, in terms of obviously it's a safe working environment, but training and I think that you listen to a few people and they sort of talk about we've got to assume that people are coming to work for the first time and almost treating them as new starters, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think we've got I'd like to think our team are fairly well embedded with us as a family and as a brand, but I do think training is hugely important. And I think in terms of feedback, I think the changes to our operational procedures will be, I think anyone who is staying with us will receive a phone call in advance of their arrival, explaining what the check-in process is, explaining what at all parts of the journey. And I think this would apply to everybody here, is that it's going to be about expectation management, is that we want people to know or to understand what they're expecting to find when they arrive. Because if they arrive and there's something they're surprised to see, that will generally trigger an overreaction to something that doesn't go perfectly. And our job, and all of us actually have got businesses where that customer interaction can be 24 hours. Somebody arrives at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they check in and they're with us until after breakfast the following day, or maybe the following day. And it's a long period of time to make sure you don't get anything wrong. And so therefore the expectation is that something may go wrong in that 24-hour period. And it's how you behave when they first arrive that will govern their reaction to something going wrong over that period of time. And so to Andy's point is, no, we're not going to invest in a lot of real-time feedback technology. We're going to try and get the customer experience right and fix it there and then, rather than deal with some online platform afterwards.
Okay, I'm not going to go into one of the questions that perhaps I could turn it round on, about whether TripAdvisor should be banned. That could be the feedback on TripAdvisor. Someone else has given us a message back that says the message so that's good. So just don't panic. And on pricing, I think that was the point there, on holding rights regarding your pricing rather than anything else. So I'm conscious of the fact that we've gone a bit over our time, and I'd like to thank all of those out there in webinar land for listening to us today. As a reminder, the webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website after the event. Thank you for your questions. There's one or two very long ones which perhaps need some more in-depth response, which we will look to get back to you on afterwards, if that's okay. And I think that with the team, I'd like to thank them. And we'd like your feedback. For those who've been watching it today, we'd love your feedback, what you've liked, what you haven't liked, your thoughts on us hosting another one of these later on in the year, or indeed even creating a series of these for you. I think it's been a really interesting hour and a quarter. So I would like to pass on an exceptionally big thank you to the panel, from Ruth, from James, from Philip, and for Andy joining us today. I'm sure you'll agree that they have been frank and honest in sharing their insights. And I'm so pleased that we've been able to cover so many aspects in a relatively short space of time. So thank you very much for joining us, and maybe we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.